yeah, like I said, I don't post maybe once every 6 months. When I see something I like, I post it, and like that. So I thank Perkins and Will for that. It was very, I don't know if I got any likes or not, but that doesn't matter. It was a good thing, and it really, felt good to see those kids out there. I saw some photos with some of you guys in there, so thank you so much for that. But other than that, I guess we could just call the meeting to order and, or just call it to
live, Mr. Bennett?
We're live, right? Okay. Yeah, at 5:32. So I guess we got quorum, it's just LT and I, and then the rest of the group here. Do we have any citizens' comments online or in person?
No comments.
No comments at all? Okay. Okay, great. I did look at the minutes. They were emailed to me and I did approve them, I believe. Is that right?
Yep.
Is that correct? Yes. So we're good on that. So I guess we can move up to item number 5, FMP updates, East-West PMSA.
Yeah, so we get started with Purpose of Will.
Okay, great.
Can you switch to presentations? Purpose of Will is up. Go.
Great, good evening. Thanks for having us here today. It's great to be back and talking to you about where we're at today. We're going to have a few things on our agenda. We're going to go through exactly what you said here, Mr. Valtierrez, the visit that the students had to our office. We'll give an update on where we are with the Transportation Center. We'll review the current security projects in the district, some initial project studies that we are working on, as well as an overview of the RFI and ASI process, and a couple construction punch list items. So for the student visit, I will hand it over to Jessica to walk through that experience.
All right, thanks, Mike. So about 3 weeks ago, we had a number of students visit our office. It was on January 19th, and we had 26 students in total and 4 chaperones. And we had a good, evenly distribution of numbers of students from Proviso East, West, and PMSA. This was a really great visit. We gave them a tour of our office, provided lunch. We gave a little presentation on Perkins and Will as a whole, what we do in our office, the Chicago office, projects that we've worked on around the state, around the country, around the world. And we also talked about some projects that we've worked on in Proviso in the past 5 years, as well as a update on some current projects that we're working on. And we gave a Q&A session. We had a number of questions from the students and the chaperones on architecture itself, and designing and engineering, and just how everything works. And yes, we followed with a Q&A session on ways that the students had, ideas that they had to improve their schools. From East, we got some suggestions on improvements needed to the softball field as well as the bleachers. There was a desire for a better or an indoor track at East. And also students expressed an interest to decongest the school bus and parent drop-off and pick-up. And at West, likewise, there were some concerns over the school bus and parent pick-up and drop-off, as well as a desire to have improvements to the outdoor track. So overall, it was a really great visit. I think everyone enjoyed themselves, and we'd love to have them back again.
Great.
All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike right now.
Thanks, Jessica. So a couple things on the Proviso Transportation Center. We're continuing to move forward with the design work on that. A parallel effort has been working with the Village of Hillside to go through the zoning and planning for the site. Since the original site for Proviso West is zoned R1, which is a residential district, not uncommon for schools to be built in residential districts. But since the original construction of the campus, the R1 district has come into play and also has gotten some additional clarification to it. The operation of a bus transit service center is not an allowed use within that space, within that zoning district. So we met with the village to review opportunities and alternate pathways for getting that facility to work on the campus. Discussed a multitude of different approaches, including a planned unit development, which was really something that was reviewed as being too difficult to accomplish within the time frame that we're looking for here, just because of the administrative efforts that would require to go through for that. So the discussion really centered around the idea of separating out a parcel from the main body of the Proviso West campus and making that into an M2 district. So it's a light manufacturing district that would allow for the construction of the transportation center by right in that space. So it's a lot less paperwork and a lot smoother of a process as described to us by the village of going through this to subdivide the parcel and then redistrict that as an M2. So we're in the process of going through and filing the paperwork with the county as well as the village to get that to move forward. In addition to that work, we've also had an intake meeting with MWRD in the middle of January to review the concept design at that time for that, get their initial comments, and then review the overall timeline and make sure that that really met with what the overall goals for the district were. I'll hand it back to Jessica here to talk about some security projects.
I got a question on the
Yeah.
EM2 zoning.
Sorry, didn't mean to walk away.
No, no problem. So you guys did, I know usually the zoning board, did you have to file a variance with them to change from R1 to M2?
We're going through a process of that's going to be subdividing the parcel. So we take the original R1 parcel and then take this M2 chunk out of it so that it becomes its own. It's given its own PIN number, it's given its own parcel number, all those things. So any variances that we have to do within that parcel, we're trying to avoid as much as possible so we don't have to go through that process of getting those variances approved, so that everything that we're doing is within right of the zoning for that new parcel.
And since it'll be a new parcel, how will that be? Well, I mean, we are a school district, we usually, taxes come in. How's the tax, how's that part handled?
It's still owned by the district, so it still is a non-taxable parcel, but it's underneath the entire campus. It's just that small chunk of land is differently zoned, and you can see that the main campus itself is also broken down into multiple parcels based on when they were either purchased or when they were or what they were like when they were purchased. Because at the time that a lot of schools were built, there wasn't a strong emphasis on planning large campuses. So you have parcels that were purchased and just not consolidated at those times. And oftentimes in these districts and these schools, we're seeing the need to go through a consolidation of those parcels and then develop a whole planned unit development around those, so that we meet the goals of the village or city's zoning department.
Was that the zoning department recommendation?
The zoning department, the recommendation from zoning was to subdivide and to do this here, because they felt that the planned unit development process would be too lengthy for the project, and it would be a bit of a challenge going through that overall, based on their experience with other planned unit developments within the village.
So they were very cooperative?
Oh, absolutely, they're great to work with, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the security projects, the schedule, and the scope. So we actually have 3 security projects here that we're working on at Proviso. Access control, which is divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 is currently under construction, and phase 2 is currently under design, and the security camera projects. So considering the design schedule, I'm going to talk about the access control phase 2. And I'll get into the scope a little bit, but I'll start with the schedule. So right now we are in the second half of the design for this. We anticipate reviewing the final design with the district in the next 3 weeks or so, and then finalizing the documents and then issuing the documents to Gilbane for bid later on in March. And the security camera schedule is about a month behind phase 2 of access control. For this, we're just starting the design phase and finalizing the scope as well. And we anticipate issuing for bid to Gilbane for that, either end of April or beginning of May. So for the access control scope, so this concerns all 3 schools. Phase 1 heavily considered the exterior doors and any door having a card reader at East, West, and PMSA. And Phase 2 is really a continuation of Phase 1. We are adding new card readers on many of the exterior doors, and we're roughing in security devices, installing door monitoring contacts, installing voice radio transmitter systems, and adding a lockdown pull station and warning strobes. And that's at both East, West, and PMSA. And then you can tell from the diagram of West that the area that we're working on for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 really does encompass nearly the entire school. Anything with a red dot is something that we're working on right now in this current phase, and anything with a gray dot, that was work that was done in the previous phase. So the scope at East is identical to at West. Every single exterior door has been considered, and the work is encompassing almost every exterior door at both East and West and PMSA, and looking at the outbuildings as well. The boiler building, field house, memorial hall, and the former wood shop as well. And at PMSA, we are continuing access control Phase 1, and we're also installing a voice radio transmitter system and lockdown stations and warning strobes.
I got a question. So I know I remember back in 2017, remember LT were putting cameras all over the place, and I know the board's gonna ask, how much of this work is rework, or is this an updated system? Because I know we did this before, or some of it, cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So are we running more Cat 5, Cat 6? Is it free air? Are we piping a little bit? Or is it a little bit of everything?
Mm-hmm.
So the initial goal for the district and the design team and construction team was to utilize some of the components that are in the buildings as we speak at Proviso East and West, because both systems are relatively newer. Samsung at Proviso East is about 6 to 7 years old, so anything that we can have talk backwards and forwards with the new system, we would going to implement that. Over at Proviso West is a Genetech system. I believe it's 7 years old as well. We're going to do the same thing at that campus. We're going to save what we can. What we can't, we have to replace. In math and science, everything is analog.
How difficult would it be to point out the zone design and say, okay, most of this is new work? Is that easy to do, or how is that complicated? I guess I'm just trying to. I know the board's going to ask me, they're going to say, okay, we did cameras. Why are we doing this again?
All right.
So I wanted to see if are you guys able to zone and say, well, this section here is pretty much new. The doors, we're putting doors in. So
Yeah, we can work
that. Yes, kind of so they'll know that yes, we had cameras installed because we walk the hallways and we see the cameras affecting, and this has been an ongoing thing. So they're going to ask, guarantee they're going to ask, why are we doing this again?
So I think MSA could.
Yeah, we can get some information from MSA, but I am going to say that a good amount of this is going to be new, and the reason for that is because one of the district's goals is to have similar or the same system at all 3 schools, because it's very difficult to replace this system and not this system, and then when something breaks down, we really, not that we're assuming that something's going to break down, but if there is a repair that's needed in the future, it's much easier to have a one-stop shop and to have all schools on the same system.
Okay, so that's what we're transitioning from separate systems to one whole system.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah, if you could explain that.
Next
slide.
Because that just came to mind. We did that already.
Right, yes.
So,
And actually, so what I've just described is largely the access control which concerns the door. And on this next slide, I'm talking more about the security camera replacement. So that's a little bit what you were just asking. So for the security cameras, we are going to look at every single camera. All of the cameras right now, they're in various states of functionality. So we are estimating right now, replacing approximately 950 cameras, all 3 campuses. And for this, we're going to upgrade the existing system. It's going to be a full system replacement. We're going to install a new back-end system. We're going to have servers and licensing at each school, and PMSA is going to be the hub that monitors all 3 schools.
Okay, are these systems POEs or?
It has not been identified yet.
No, we haven't gotten that far in the design process.
I'm just wondering.
One thing I want to add to this, and you might have something in the next slide, but the parking lots. Remember we put that underground infrastructure in at all 3 schools?
Yes.
We want to make sure we capture the parking lots as best as possible.
Yes, so any place in the past few years of design where we have worked on the parking lot, we did put infrastructure for new security cameras. So that infrastructure that's been put in the past few years will be utilized in this next phase.
You know, condos to a certain position.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So talking about there's been quite a bit of conversation that has been stemming out of some of the FMP discussions about some additional projects that are being considered within the district. Just giving an update that we've worked on developing architectural and engineering narratives for all the projects listed here. That includes welding labs, diesel labs, stadium improvements, nursing improvements, field house and building B pools at East, solar photovoltaics, elevator upgrades, and entry security improvements at all schools. And we have handed off the architectural and engineering narratives to Gilbane. I know Gilbane's working on providing some high-level order of magnitude budget estimates for those, and we'll be able to bring those back to you when those are developed. Just to give an understanding of where we are sitting right now, there's a few things that have been outstanding in conversations, and that have included the creation of a diesel and EV lab. So we really took a step back after the discussion for that and wanted to take a look at and see what was the best approach for the district on this. And we had 2 options that we wanted to look at here. One was the creation of a dedicated diesel or EV lab that would attach to the new transportation center at West. That would be an expansion of the footprint of the transportation center at West in order to allow for the creation of a working lab as well as a classroom space that is similar to the auto shop that was created over at East and transferred into Memorial Hall. So we saw some good opportunities for the synergies of the equipment as well as personnel potentially at that location. There are some challenges, obviously, with a facility that's no longer attached to the building and is a bit of a walk from the building to here. So that really got us thinking about what are the opportunities here to tie into the existing structure. And so we worked together with LT's team here to really talk about an opportunity to create an expanded and renovated auto shop as part of a larger CTE wing at West that builds on the work that was done with the advanced manufacturing lab by filling in the space between the current auto shop and the advanced manufacturing lab. And that is shown here that potentially could house a diesel and EV lab, which has a good connectivity to the auto shop, and then a welding lab, which could bridge the gap between the auto shop and the advanced manufacturing, and provide some really good synergies of program within those 2. And then, we can look at other things that we had discussed in the past to round out that area by adding in a culinary lab to the south of the advanced manufacturing lab. Those are things that we had talked about in the main portion of the building as needing some additional work in the future and having been excluded from the air conditioning in order to anticipate that future work. So there's an opportunity to, again, to relocate all these career technical education components next to each other, and then that allows space to open up in the main portion of the building for some additional academic use in that area, including also fashion design lab in here also. And then looking at this as really a real 21st century career space for the district.
Now that section there, is that parking lot?
There's a
Between the
parking,
parking lot and the.
yeah, there's a salt shed out here, there's some facilities, vehicles that are stored out there, over time. It provides a good, loading area for advanced manufacturing in there. Again, just a concept, so, trying this out for size, see what the budget, estimates come back at, and see where we can go with it.
What about those tunnels out there right there?
The tunnels are actually, the main tunnel is underneath the walk here as a connector between the two buildings.
Did we repair those already?
Those are underway, I think,
No,
or is it?
we repaired it
It's
already.
been completed? Yeah, that's right, I apologize.
Putting the foundation there,
Yeah, but it was originally structured for a building to go on top of it, it's in the future date. So the foundations are already constructed in that way, so we think there's a good opportunity there.
So you won't even touch those, I mean, you'll expose them, but you won't.
Well, we'll test them and make sure that they're capable of supporting the building that would be put on there. But we think that there's a real good approach that we could take there.
How's that tunnel built, is it just a big tunnel square with footings and?
Yeah, it's two large cast in place concrete walls that go down to footings underground, and then it has a concrete top on it that can operate as a slab, or we can build over top of it with a new slab.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay, and then as well, there was a question about looking at options to renovate and bring back the building B pool at East. And we've taken a look at what are the requirements based on code as well as IDPH requirements for that, what would make a good use of the space. So in this study, we've looked at expanding the footprint of the pool slightly in order to give a more closer to a competition pool. I wouldn't say that this is a competition pool, but increase the usability of the pool as well as increase the deck space as required by IDPH. And then looked at how to possibly lay out locker rooms and mechanical equipment spaces, pool equipment areas, the addition of a remote chemical room, and then some general mechanical approaches to ventilation and entryway into the space. And we provided this as an overall project narrative to Gilbane to see what the overall budget might be on this. As you can imagine, this is an invasive project because it's centered core of the building. So there will be a premium to doing that work in the existing footprint of the building.
So I know one of the board members brought this up, and there was a discussion about, the cost to actually make this a competition pool. And we said that, we just wanted it for the students, it's suitable for the students, maybe not so for competition. Maybe I missed it. Did you say that you're trying?
No, the length is, we're trying to make it into a more usable pool size by increasing the length of the pool. Because as it is right now, it's a rather small pool for the number of students who would be using it. So increasing the length allows you to use it for more opportunities. And it also sits within the existing structure. Anything that we try to build this any further, either to the east or the west, or the north and the south, we start to really run into the existing structure. And that causes either an increase in overall project cost due to relocating or transferring that structure, or a significant challenge on building around that structure within the pool.
So it wouldn't be a competition pool.
That's correct.
Oh, okay. So, but you are gonna extend it?
That's what we're studying right now. There are options that we could look at, keeping it within the existing footprint if the budget comes back and it's feasible, but it still is too great. But we do know that there are significant items that we have to look at as far as accessibility is concerned, as far as and the pool deck is concerned. We know that the ceiling height is also a limiting factor on how the pool is going to operate as well.
And this is a pool where you have those panels, the pool, the only one,
Yeah, it's in the B building by the ROTC.
the one we talked about that?
No, that's in the field house. It's on Philadelphia 2000.
I haven't seen this one.
This one's in the B building on the opposite side of the campus.
Okay.
At the Fieldhouse School, we've actually put together another narrative on some items that need to be improved there too. We'll see what the budget numbers come back on that one also.
Okay.
Okay. There was a question also about discussing through the RFI and the ASI process. So I'll just give a really brief primer on that. I'm happy to answer any questions that might come through that. So RFIs are requests for information. They can be submitted by anybody on the project. Usually these are from a subcontractor or a general contractor or a construction manager back to the architect and design team, or through the design team to the owner. And these have one or many questions. Typically what we see is that we'll be in the field, we'll be talking with contractors in the field, and a question will come up, and we'll ask for that to be written as an RFI so it can be officially recorded into the project record, and so that it can be answered by the team, and again the answer can be officially recorded. They do not authorize any changes in scope, schedule, cost, or any substitutions of product. There are other methodologies that we go by to do any one of those, and that is to safeguard the project and to safeguard the district's investment in the project. These are simply asking questions and making sure that the answers come back here. Any answers that are issued can be issued directly to an RFI if they are very simple clarification answers. Typically what we want to do is we want to use one of a number of different methods to respond to that. One is an ASI, which is an architect supplemental instruction. This is a response to any question or that's either posed directly officially as an RFI or as comes through unofficial channels. This does make modifications to the documents that have been issued, but it does not authorize any changes, again, in scope, schedule, cost, or substitution of product. This is simply a clarification of an item that is in the documents, either in the specifications or in the drawings, and provides that clarification based on a question that has been asked or an observation that has been made by the design team. So minor adjustments, minor clarifications, doesn't have any impact on your budget, on your schedule, or on the scope of the work. So if there are items that require scope changes, those need to go through a change proposal process. And those, that is where we get into change orders to a project that are either consequential or non-consequential. That is, they have either an impact on the project budget or the project schedule, or they do not. There are substitution request forms that we can use for substitutions of any products. And again, we go through a rigorous review process on any of these questions, any of these substitution requests that come forward.
That's really what I was interested in. So the normal RFI process for whatever, maybe the contractor doesn't understand the drawings and he's just got a question, maybe a cut sheet or
sure,
this opening here or that beam there, So my question is really your last part. What percentage would you say of those RFIs where you're actually changing the scope due to well, maybe we should have broke that wall and found out it's not drywall, it's got black hole, something simple.
Yeah, things are going to happen. There's no such thing as a perfect set of documents, and we're dealing with existing conditions which are inherently challenging to deal with.
Yep.
So observations happen all the time on that. The main thing to know is we're not responding to RFIs directly that have anything of that magnitude that comes forward. We go through the proposal request process when that comes up. So we respond to the RFI noting that there's a proposal request for work that we've identified as being outside of the original scope or that will require a change to the contract schedule or the contract budget.
Yeah, so if you guys could give me a percentage of what those RFIs, just because they cost the district money, they cost you money, and it costs you money, it costs us money. So I just want to, how are we doing with it? You guys been here for what, 4 years now? So those RFIs cost money. It's got to go to you. It's got to go to the engineer. It's got to go to the architect or MEP, whoever the designer for the mechanical, electrical, or plumbing. and those RFIs cost money. So
Well-
I want to know exactly what percentage of those RFIs are coming to you, because that's the direct cost impact on the district,
Just,
direct impact cost on you guys, and it's something that I'm concerned about, just
Sure.
because those RFIs cost money.
yeah, just
Maybe these don't, or the first
Yeah.
ones you explained, but
Yeah.
the ones where you had scope change because of the drawing wasn't, something was missing, or, it happens, it
Mhm.
happens. For example, when we were doing those skylights, right, that you ran into those members,
Yeah.
that you had to restructure that.
Sure.
So, that's what I want to know, I want to know what percentage throughout these whole process, how many of those RFIs have we dealt with?
Sure, and we can go through numbers of RFIs. The clarity that I want to bring though is that RFIs, ASIs, proposal requests, the substitution requests, those are no additional engineering or architectural fees associated with those. Those are all part of our base services, unless it's a significant redesign that's been initiated by the district. So if you come to us and say, hey, we want to build a different wing on the building, we can put that out as a PR, but there's a significant design associated with that. If there's something in the field that's discovered and say, hey, we didn't know that was there, it needs to be modified, that's at no fault of anybody. No fault of the designer, no fault of the engineer, no fault of the contractor or the owner. We're not seeing any additional engineering costs from that from any side, and that's not being passed on to the district at all.
Right, and that's what I would like to see, have conversations about that.
Sure.
Maybe that's your opinion, but to have conversations about that. Because if there is a design change, okay, what happened? Was it the contractor, was it, the district?
Yeah.
Was it, I don't want to put blame, but I just want to see what the impact is.
And I was merely using an example. I wasn't
Right,
attempting to
so
say that everything is.
If you could share that with us, just as part of transparency, you've
Mhm.
been transparent with us at all times, so I would like to see that.
Sure.
How many RFIs, what percentage of RFIs in this aspect have we dealt with, just because that has an impact on you, on our district. Even if you don't, it's part of the package, we still got to put more money out to fix it. You'll fix the drawing, but then now we have to put additional costs to it, the change order or whatever. So I just want to know where we stand with that. It's
Right.
almost like,
Yeah.
everybody's bidding on the job, who came closest to it. I just want to know,
Yeah.
I just want to know.
We'll go through, we'll categorize
Right.
those, and we'll show you where we sit on that. The one thing that I will say is that it's been extremely successful working with Gilbane on this project, and the contingencies that have been built into the district for each of these projects have been enough to cover anything that might come up. There's been significantly under budget on all the projects to date. So the budgets that have been established have been good. The projects have come in close to those, to the district's favor, and work that's been done over time hasn't required any additional funds being brought in by the district. And I understand your position on that, and we'll certainly take a look at where we sit on all those.
Yeah, please do, thank you.
Yeah. There's a couple items too that we have from the field that we wanted to bring to your attention, just so that you know that we're continuing to be an advocate for the district on items that have been constructed. So things that have been brought up post-construction, there's one at Proviso West. This is a recently installed curb that doesn't conform with the requirements from IDOT standards or from a visual inspection of the curb. So we've worked with the contractor as well as the district to develop a proposal for a corrective action on that, and that is still in process of developing that. There's also a review of the Proviso East parking lots. There was noted that there is some ponding that is beyond IDOT standards in that area. Again, we're working with the construction team as well as the district to determine what the best course of action for this is. So more on those will come as the ultimate solution is developed for those two items.
Yeah, I've seen this, if you go back to the photo, that's when you're heading north, right over
Right.
the viaduct, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
I've seen some of this when you're heading out the door onto First Avenue. I've seen that as well there. So yeah, that's it's a hazard to our students or our staff when it's cold and it's icy.
Sure.
And, that's, it's really, and I've seen them last year, I think it was last year, not even this year, because I haven't been around. But yeah, I've seen them, so
Okay.
how do we handle that, especially if it's been over a year for this?
Yeah, well, the contractor is still reviewing the options that there are to resolve this. Because of the nature of the paving, any solution could potentially be more invasive than the actual condition that it is right now. So again, we want to bring all the possible solutions to the table here, make sure that the district's really aware of what the options are, and then you can make an informed decision on the best way to go for the district.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes, it's a hassle to get this guy to come back, and he's never going to come back.
Well, the contractors have been really good to work with on this. They've been working with the district for quite a while already, and so they've been amenable to any discussions that we've been having with them.
Good work done.
Great, you go back one slide, Mike. I want to make a few comments about the curves over at Proviso West High School. We had a good meeting with, I believe it's Schroeder Asphalt, Gilbane, and Perkins and Wheel, and the Proviso team. And it was discovered that Schroeder is going to come out over spring break to modify 4 to maybe 5 areas. The district did point out more than 4 to 5. And I do want to make sure that once the contractor come up with an acceptable remedy, that the rest of the curves are addressed as well. So it was not only those 4 to 5 areas that was alluded to during the meeting, it was several more. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
Thanks, LT. We'll make sure that we discuss that a little further.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Great, thank you. I will hand it over to Tom.
Thank you. Good evening. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to kick off the Gilbane portion. Michelle McClendon is actually on the team's portion, so she's going to jump in after the first couple slides. But this is our update, February 7th. First thing we're going to start with is the punch list. We'll actually be touching base on the last topic you guys just discussed with Perkins and Will here in a second. First item, 2021 project punch list items, the controls. At Proviso East, we've had some challenges there that we've been dealing with. D3, who is the integrator, is in the process right now of completing and troubleshooting the graphics on the front end side. We actually had enormously positive progress over the last 2 to 3 days in this venture, and I'm really hoping that by the later part of next week, the control side should be remedied. I know it's been kind of tedious. The one thing I will say that's a positive of it is, moving forward, the next 2 summers, this past summer, we know exactly what we need to do on controls, so we shouldn't be, having these same issues, because it should be corrected right from the onset. Next time I want to touch base on was the Proviso East fencing. So at Proviso East on the north parking lot, there were some grade issues or challenges that the contractor had, so we had a significantly large gap underneath the fence. They were out this past summer to remedy it. Unfortunately, that remedy was still not enough. I think we still have anywhere from 5 to 8 inches in a couple of areas. When we had them out to discuss other items, they're not walking away from this by any means. They basically said that as soon as the weather gets into a better place, spring, summer, they'll be back out again to attempt to get that thing finalized and fixed and remedy where the district would like to have it. Moving on to the 2022 items, doors at Proviso East. As I'm sure you're aware, we have not had the opportunity to install a single new wood door at Proviso East yet as a result of the enormous delays in shipment. We finally have those lined up. They're going to be starting the 17th and then working their way through President's Day. We're looking at 3 to 4 days for them to wrap up and get those wood doors installed. And then the last item on here is the generator. We had a good meeting last week regarding the generator to get the pad basically oriented and located. Right now what we're looking for, what our hope is, the week before spring break, if we can get lucky enough and have a 50-degree day in there, we'd like to get that pad poured for the generator. The generator is available to be placed, so we would be able to do that over spring break. I will state that we're not going to be able to do any termination. We won't be able to make tie-ins, termination, or tie-ins to the gas until summer, because there's still other elements of that work that we have to address before we can actually fire that unit up.
Now the underground work is done?
Yeah, everything is ready. It's place it and terminate it basically is where we're at right now. Any questions on those?
I just had a question on the D3 completion and troubleshooting the graphics end. What is that?
So the controls at Proviso East specifically have been a little bit of a challenge. So they've been up and down. So some of the rooms are operating properly, some are not operating properly. Mechanical, yes, mechanical, I'm sorry, mechanical controls. Yes, yep, for the new VRF system. Yep. So this is just basically getting that finalized and wrapped up. Like I said, yesterday and today we had enormous progress on the integration side. We just have a couple little items to get tweaked. We got the mechanical supplier coming out to look at 2 stats, and then hopefully we'll be completed.
But the temperatures are okay, right?
With the exception of 2 to 3 rooms that we've been working with Gilbane and the trade contractor with, but we get in those spaces as soon as we can.
Too hot or too cold?
A few too cold when they first got cold, and there was one room that had way too much air pressure because of the sensor, but not to the magnitude of where we have to shut the top floor down or anything like that. 2 to 3 rooms.
So they're not VAVs, they're
It's the VTUs. So it's the VRF system. So you got the condensing units and then the VTUs. The VTUs are actually in the classroom spaces.
So the thermostats are not syncing with the dampers to open up?
It's a little more complicated. They're syncing. It's just they were hit or miss on how they were functioning. They weren't functioning properly, and there was a lot of back and forth testing and trying to figure out what's causing the issues. And we finally got it to a point where we know what the issues are. Moving on, curbs at Proviso West. Again, as we discussed, we had some challenges. The contractor had some challenges with the unevenness. As LT had alluded to, over spring break, they will be out to look at a modification, basically to try to grind down the face and try to level that off and even it off. We are going to go ahead and get that completed, and then we'll have all parties in to look and confirm that that's the right avenue, and that would be the correction that we can move forward with. And again, that's going to be something that we're going to look to hit up over spring break.
Let me ask you a question about this. Are they just small sections?
So it's over a length. So like if you look on the top picture here, you can kind of see the challenge that the contractor had in a lot of areas is where you have that unevenness with the sidewalk. So if you look at the top picture, the bottom 2 sidewalk panels are not even. So that was a challenge for them. Now that should have only been a challenge on the back of curb, but it pushed out to the front of curb, and that's what our discussion has been with them, is that they needed to correct the front of curb. Back of curb is what it is. It's the front of curb that's
blocked out. I mean, it's only one block of concrete. It's probably just 4 inches thick.
Right.
It's new in the back, new in the front, and then you still have that whole piece in it.
Yep.
Unless there was a kind of thing in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, your guess as good as mine is how they let that happen, but it occurred, and we're investigating the remedies for it.
I have to cut that out and put a new one.
You know, that's something that we'll look into if the other solution's not good, or if you know that the remedy comes back and is not acceptable. And then the ponding water and the locations at East. Again, I know it was discussed, so give a good rating to Abbey Paving because they've been very honorable in coming out and remedying issues as they've come out, as they've been arising. This is no different. When they were out here to look at another concern to show their solution, we showed them the ponding, and so they're investigating, you know, any other opportunities or potential remedies The one drawback, and again, something that we'll have to review, is the likelihood is you're going to be looking at cutting out the asphalt and then putting it back in, so you obviously have some aesthetic concerns in that regard. But again, I'm still waiting to hear back the final report from them with their options and their potential solutions. And then one thing real quick before I turn this over to Michelle, I just want to point out, I know an item that you had identified previously at the Advanced Manufacturing Lab was that noisy ductwork. And that has been remedied over winter break. We had a contractor come in and was able to get rid of and eliminate that noise, so should be good to go in there.
Students will appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, Michelle, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. So the first item I will be going over is the estimates for the transportation or bus barn over at Proviso West. We were asked to look at 3 options for the bus barn and evaluate their pricing. So the first option is based off of the drawings that have been provided by Perkins & Will. It includes a low-bearing masonry structure that is approximately 11,500 square feet in area. Pardon me. The total pricing, we were asked to break it up for what costs would be incurred in 2023 and what costs would be incurred in 2024 should we move forward with this proposal. For option 1, and all of the options rather, the costs that would be incurred in 2023 would be the parking lot and site improvement work. That cost is all in is a little over $4 million, with the sub cost being $2.9 million. But once we add on escalation contingencies for both design and construction, which obviously can be reduced as we get further into the design We were asked to give an economic inclusion update if we wanted to do workforce tracking. Right now, we currently track our economic spend
retainage for these contractors for all these punch list items that we saw on the photos, or is that for something else?
It's, Michelle, I can take this one. So, most of the retainage is held until all the closeout documents are provided, so that would be punch list, as-built drawings. All that stuff needs to be received before we release their final retainage. It starts off at 10%, so from day one, billings, we hold 10% retainage. Once we get to substantial completion, we may reduce it down to 5%, but then we don't reduce it again after that point until everything has been submitted and
No,
finalized.
the reason I'm asking is just because some of this work, I don't know, I'm not in agreement that you're gonna come and cut my asphalt and make a quality job that should have been done right the first time with a patch. And I don't agree with that. They gotta come out with something better than that. And that would not be acceptable for my, as far as I'm concerned as a board member, that would not be acceptable, a patch or square. They're gonna have to throw some kind of design or even put some asphalt above and beyond what's there, because we pay for a quality product and that's what we want, but we do not want patches. And I'll ask the rest of the board, we do not want less than that, so somebody's gonna eat up that, so that's what I'm asking. We're not gonna accept any substandard work, so no patching, none of that, no little squares. You either do a nice chunk to make it look good, or we'll keep this money. You know, that's the way it's gotta be, because, you know, somebody dropped the ball, so that's the way we gotta do it. And just to let you guys know, we're not gonna accept patches. I'll talk to the board, the day of the meeting, I'm just one board member, but we're not gonna accept substandard patching work when we pay for high quality work. Just so you guys know it. So if you guys want to start working on that, that's what the board, you know, that's what I'm gonna bring to the board. We're not gonna accept that.
Yeah, Mr. V, if I can add to that, for sure, there's been a lot of hard, balanced conversations since December 10th or so. We've noticed that lot had issues over at Proviso West High School, and also when you brought up the ponding at Proviso East. So we are no doubt, we're in the trenches battling to do the best job we can to make sure we do get a great product, and for sure, we are gonna make sure that we do.
Yeah, either they cut a nice section, and so it's gotta be big section. We're not gonna take a patch in the middle of a nice looking driveway when it should have been done the first time, so just to guys let you know, I don't think the board's gonna accept that. I personally won't, it's up to them, so just so you guys know. Moving back to the workforce tracking. Michelle, so what is this workforce tracking? What is it that you're trying? I know I asked the question last time. Is this so they could keep track, because we keep asking you guys about the minority contractor status? Is that what this is, or what is this?
No, that's a little different. So we currently track minority-owned companies, and we'll continue to track that. The workforce are the men and women that physically walk into the building to do the work. So this would be tracking the demographics of those folks.
Okay, so did I ask that? I'm sorry. I got so much stuff going on. Did I ask that, or any of the board members ask for this information? As they want to know who actually, I know usually you gotta do this with, what do you call that, prevailing wage projects?
Yeah,
It's
so,
similar to that, but this is more like,
so many board members have brought this concern up, that what are we doing as Proviso, working with Gilbane, to get that number up to that 15% that was agreed upon back in 2019 on the projects, and Gilbane's 20%. So
that's what this is.
after having a conversation with Michelle about this, we believe that this would not bring value to the project, because as she alluded to a few minutes ago, it's going to be a roughly 20 to 22% already. So it's going to be 7 to 8% higher than what the board goal was. And Gilbane is, I believe, is at 20%.
Yeah, I just think the board is kind of a little disappointed as far as, you know, we asked for the information and we never got it. So that's why we kept insisting that we needed something. So Michelle, you're telling me that this is a workforce tracker and we got to pay this amount so somebody to track the work and show us what's going on? I'm trying to get it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, for the demographics of the actual people working on the project. But what we agreed to as far as tracking the economic spend, we are continuing to maintain that commitment. And that is what was on the next slide for how much we've spent and the folks that we've given those dollars to, the actual companies we've given those dollars to. And as I noted, for this latest bid package that went out, we were able to achieve a little over 20% in diverse businesses that we are proposing or are in the process of awarding the contracts to for that $30 million project.
Okay, so this, I guess your workforce, that's a little more in detail. You're dissecting even these
Right.
projects.
Yes.
It's like,
It will be above and beyond what we're tracking.
okay, I see. Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, but, you know, I guess this information will present it to the board. And,
Yes.
and they'll look into that. I mean, when I look at this, I'm like, you know, even if I have to say, Michelle, with all due respect, why do we have to pay for it? You know, we asked for this information a long time ago, and now barely we're getting it. So, now I'm trying to be rude or anything, but this is something that if the board will want it, we wouldn't pay for that. That would be part of your scope, part of the contract, because we never got the information when we asked, or we were asking for years. So, you know, that's what I would recommend to the board. If they're not satisfied and they want this, you guys gotta pay for it. Just because you never gave us the information we requested. And with all due respect, it's just me. You know, we'll see what the board wants and we'll move from there. To me, I think the information you provided over here is fine with other contractors. But if they do, most of the majority wants this, and I would personally recommend that you guys pay for it. You know, just to be straightforward and transparent. Because we've been asking for this and you guys never gave it to us till now. So, you know, that's where I stand. And that will be my recommendation to the board. If they do want this, you guys have to pay for it. Just so you can prepare for it. On your next slide, when request for information on the RFIs, what is on the y-axis here? I see you got the years on the x-axis. What is that? Are those days, months, hours?
The x-axis is the month and the y-axis is the number of RFIs.
Say that again. The y-axis is the months?
No. The y-axis is the number of RFIs.
Okay, number of RFIs. And then the x is what?
Is the month that the RFIs were issued and closed.
Okay, let's see. So number of RFIs, put that on top, and then the month, like 22/6, 22/7. I see. Okay, got it. And that's for both graphs, right?
West is on the left, east is on the right.
I see it. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and then getting back to the options here, the three options. So the first option is the low-bearing just masonry. And then option number 2, can you repeat that again? Hold on a second. So that's the metal building. Is that like, that metal building, is that when they do a footing foundation slab and then they just erect beams and then just wrap it with, you know, kind of a Costco building? Is that what that is?
Essentially, similar, yes.
Okay, and then the last one, the last
It's a
option.
smaller, the last one is a smaller metal building, so less square footage.
Okay, and the way you broke it down on the site where you got the site work, and I see here on any of the options, option 1, you got low. For example, let's take the example option 1. The first section is the site work, the civil work, and then the next section is low-bearing masonry. What are the difference between these two, the 7 million
Sure,
and 12 million?
so the first column are costs that would be incurred in 2023. We were asked to break the project out as to what would be the expense in 2023, what would be the expense in 2024, and then what's the total project cost for each option. So the first column, all of the site work, all of the prep work for the building and the parking lot work would be done in 2023. and then the actual structure itself, we would incur those costs in 2024, and then the last column essentially totals both years.
Got it, okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just to make sure we, the same information is presented and then explained, and then once the board asks the questions, then we could decide then.
Sure.
Yeah, so is there any action items that are from here?
No,
No, actually, this is just information.
yep, this is presentation.
Great, all right. All right, so I think you're up next, LT, administration.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Gilbane was notified immediately. Mark came out on a Saturday, I believe he met me over at Proviso West. Carl came out and did a bunch of measurements, but we echo exactly what you're saying. We want to make sure we get a good product.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many companies, what they do, they'll, you know, as part of the bid or part of the contract, you have a QA/QC representative from their own company, the concrete guy, or whatever. But then if you catch too many mistakes and too many quality, you know, errors or, you know, things are not up to standard, then you gotta fire the guy and then we gotta hire one and they gotta pay for it. You know what I mean? We gotta take on that. If we have to hire a guy because maybe, you know, you guys don't have the capacity to inspect properly, then, you know, the district could hire somebody on your money, on your cost. And that's exactly what many contractors do. You give them the opportunity to say, okay, you know, get your QA/QC guy, he'll be your guy, whoever you want to put it. But if there's so many times that you're not, you know, you don't meet standard, then you know, the company or the customer comes and says, now we gotta hire our own QA/QC guys because you're not doing your job. So that's my recommendation to you guys. You know, you give the contractor or the opportunity to let them do their own QA/QC. And if it's substandard work, well, you know, now we have to take over and we got to do it for you because you're not doing it correctly. So I think that will be my recommendation moving forward. That if we get too much of this, then we have to hire our own QA/QC, and it's going to come out of not the district, it's going to come out of somebody else. The salary that we have to pay this person or make sure this work is done correctly. So that's just, you know, that's just my recommendation would be if the contractor or the company's not doing their part on the QA/QC. So that's, you know. Other than that, any questions, anybody? Everybody's always quiet. Yeah. Okay, I guess we'll adjourn. It's 7:01. Perfect.
Thank you, everyone.